back to the Daughter Arrives YouTube channel. How are you today? I am good. Hope that you're enjoying the sunshine. About time. The weather's starting to change now, so I hope that you're making the most of it. So today really it was just a quick video about something I watched a couple nights ago called Care to Chaos. It was this young lady named Rebecca who was producing this documentary, and she wanted to find out why young people who are in the care system fall through the cracks when they leave, and why can't they get continued support after they've left the care system. So I wanted to just talk about a couple of things to do with this documentary. You can catch it on BBC iPlayer, and I'll leave the link below for you. I wanted to kind of talk about it from a different kind of point of view, really. I was a young person at one stage who was in the care system, and I was in care from the age from 13 to 17 years old. So I had maybe about 6 or 7 placements, and they varied from residential care, secure units and foster carers. And my experience of being in care, I found it quite unsettling, and I felt that I wasn't actually able to really come to terms with everything that I'd been through, because being in care was kind of chaotic. I had a lot of moves, there was a lot of things going on, I was getting into different kinds of situations and everything. So she was talking about when people leave the care system, why they experience the things they do and what can be done to help them. So she made a point about once a young person in care hits 18 years old, that they're aged out of the system. Now this is very, very true. Through my work in Daughter Arise, and from my experience as a young person, when I was a young person being in the care system, it is almost like once you hit a certain age that they start to that the authorities do start to kind of wash their hands off of you. Now I fell pregnant at 16 years old, and almost immediately when I fell pregnant at 16 years old, the local authority that I was under started to wash their hands off me, and I ended up actually not leaving care at 18. I was aged out at 17 years old. I had no family. Remember, I was in care because I was sexually abused. I still hadn't even at that point dealt with the issues that that put me in care in the first place, because I wasn't ready. I could not understand and was not ready to engage with any help to be able to get help, to be able to understand my issues. Now that, against the backdrop of being moved around several different places, having to adapt, having to learn to be learn about new environments and stuff, it didn't really help me. So when you're in the care system and you're trying to deal with those issues, you don't really think about the issues about why you were in care in the first place. Or if you think about the issues, you're thinking about them more on a surface level. You're not going to the root of the issues. Like when I was saying to you at 22, after I had the breakdown, that's what I had started to do, because I was too busy trying to survive, trying to play the system. So I was aged out of care at 17 and a half. Now, she was saying that considering that a lot of young people do not have families, have come from chaotic backgrounds and do not have families, that it shouldn't be the case, and wants to know then why, if the government says they're our corporate parent, if it was in a real life situation of having a parent, your parents wouldn't just kick you out when you were 18 years old. And what she is saying is true. Not for everybody, because I think that it all depends on the family dynamics. Some young people do leave home before 18. Others, once they hit 18, they start to pay their way in a family, but they're still part of a family unit. Now, in answer to that question, really, I mean, as heartbreaking as it is, it's all about money and resources. Now, one of the statistics was that 70,000 children came into care last year. And when you think about that, what is involved with each child in their care and everything else, the government really don't have the resources to do that. Now, I know it's some local authorities, they do have stay and put schemes and different things like that. You know, if you're going to university or staying in further education. But on the whole, a lot of young people are aged out at 18. Through my work at Daughter Arise, I've worked with, obviously I'm a care leaver myself, but I've also worked with care leavers, and some of the issues that they then go on to face are quite even more chaotic than when they were in care. You know, being able to look after themselves, being able to kind of understand about boundaries and everything else, is still kind of caught up in them trying to find themselves and deal with their issues. I don't think that the government really can do much about it. I mean, what would they be able to do? Would they be able to provide specialists, maybe accommodation till 25 years old, to help young people? I don't know if they'd be able to do that, because I do think it's about money and resources. I think it's to do a lot more from my experience, it's to do a lot more with stability and love. Now, when I was in care, I always felt like you know, no matter what foster parent or place I was in, I always felt like I didn't belong. I didn't feel like I was part of anything. You know, I had a foster parent quite early on in when I first came into care, and I was the foster child. You know, and that right at the beginning always set a marker for me, because it made me definitely know that I was not really one of the family, even though I lived in this family and you know, I was part of this family. And her behaviour towards me as well, she treated me and my foster sister quite different and everything else, really didn't help us to feel inclusive as part of her natural family. So when you're in that type of environment, whether it's you know, in foster care, and it's even worse in residential care it's even worse in residential care, because actually you don't have a parent. You know, you have key workers, you have you know, your staff and everything else, but they're not your family either. So what you tend to do is you tend to kind of go towards more your peers, and your peers kind of become your support. Whether it's good or bad, their influence has an effect on you. Now, I know that being in care, the chaos of being in care, and the lack of boundaries, I ended up in all kinds of situations. You know, I doubt if I was in my family unit, I would I would start smoking at 13, 14, started smoking weed, or, you know, drinking alcohol, or living a certain lifestyle, staying out till 11, 12, 1 in the morning and stuff like that. I don't think that I would be doing those things if I was in a family unit. And it's quite different, because you go from living in a family unit, because went into care at 13, you go into living in a family unit, and then getting taken into care. And where, you know, yes, you have staff in the homes that will tell you, you know, do's and don'ts, and, you know, being at a certain time, but they're not your parents. So you know that they're not your parents, so you really do push the boundaries and you start to do what you want. And that safety net, I think, when I was in care, they tried their best to contain that, you know, within what they could do. But ultimately, I made my own decisions and said that this is what I was going to do. The instability part of being moved from pillar to post was just really hard. I remember living out of a bin bag, not unpacking my bin bag of stuff, because I didn't know how long I was going to be somewhere. And it is very hard, and it is quite lonely. And, you know, she was speaking to a couple of people. One of them, Chloe, she had like 22 moves, and there was another guy who was homeless that had a similar number. No, there was another guy who had 26 moves. He was going around now educating foster carers and people to how, as a young person, that affected him, which I thought was fantastic, because I think who better to get that information from than somebody who has been through it, who's lived the life. It was really sad, because when she was going around and she was speaking to, she went onto the streets and she wanted to speak to just random homeless people and asking them if they'd ever been in care. The majority of them had been in care. You know, one woman shared that she was abused, and that, yeah, she just kind of drifted, and now she was living on the streets. And, you know, it was really sad to actually see that, you know. It's not easy when you go from living with a parent, say for instance, and then you know, you have situations of abuse, and then you go into the care system. it takes a long time. I believe it takes more than the years in care to be able to digest and be able to come to terms with what has happened to you in every aspect of life. And then by the time you turn around, for some people, it's already too late. They've had a flat, they've lost it, they've gone on to drugs, or they've done different things. I think it's important as well to say that not all young people who leave the care system end up in these situations. I know young care leavers through the work I do with Daughter Rise and through my talks that I've met, who have gone on to do successful things. They've gone to university, they're holding down jobs, they're leading productive lives. But I suppose that it is important to highlight as well those that have not had the support and help to be able to do that. Also as well, she talked about some statistics show that young girls who are in the care system end up being prostitutes working the streets. And she was with a company, an organisation that kind of had a van that was going around at night providing drinks, condoms, all this type of thing to the sex workers in that particular city. And one young woman shared her story about, she prostituted herself from, I think, the age of 16 to 20 or something like that. I knew a few girls in one home that I was in, and yeah, they were sleeping with guys for trainers or for cash. You got to remember when you're 15, 14 and you're getting like 60, 50 pound, 100 pound, or the latest trainers and stuff like that, those things are a big deal. And, I don't even think they even looked on it as they were doing that they were prostituting themselves. They just looked on it as they were getting their money and getting their goods. But I also know other young women, unfortunately, who have turned to alcoholism and drugs. And some of these women I was in care with, and I'm thankful, obviously, that I've been able to make it through. But, I do think about the friends that I had back then and wonder if some of them, if they're all right. And I have tried to kind of contact them. So, it's really, really hard. I think that more support could be given, maybe like a transitional period support from maybe 17 to 19 or 20. But ultimately, I think one of the things that I've had to learn the hard way is that I had to at 17 basically learn to fend for myself. I had to learn how to look after myself. And I had to do that a lot when I was younger. When I entered into care at 13, I had to learn how to cook, how to wash my clothes, how to do certain things. But it really hit home when I got my first flat at 17. I believe what would have helped me would have been support. I do believe that if I had had a loving family or support in place, it probably would have helped me during that time. I made some decisions that I wouldn't say that I regret, but that I wish that if I had support, I probably could have made those better decisions. I don't look on things with regret, but I do think that support, if I had additional support, it would have been easier. No one taught me about relationships, boundaries or anything like that. It's been like a lifelong learning mission. I think for Rebecca, I mean, I'm really pleased because her friends' parents provided for her the stability that she needed. They weren't foster carers or anything like that. She knew she wasn't on the clock. Once she hit 18, that when the money stops, then she'd have to go, because she said that out of her own mouth. That was one of her fears, that once the money stopped with foster carers, that she would be left out in the cold. But these people, they loved her, they've accepted her, and they said it hasn't always been easy, but they see her as one of their family. And she has said that support has been absolutely the backbone to where she is today. And she said she's grateful for that. She also said that it shouldn't be a thing that young people should have to feel grateful for that. It should be something that it should be a natural thing for them to have. But unfortunately, just because of the nature of the care system, as I said, with money, resources and everything else, it's never going to be like that. unfortunately. I think at most what they try to do within the care system, what I found is they try their best to just prepare you the best they can with whatever resources they have. And that was for a short time with me. But ultimately, once when you do leave, if you don't have other people in place, it is really hard. So I can see why people fell through the gaps. I can see why people have ended up homeless. And also as well, when you've been moved around from pillar to post, one thing that I did find was that I found it very hard to settle into employment in my early years, because I was so used to, I found when I was in employment, when things got too tough or difficult, I would just leave the job and go on to something else. And for about 5 years, from the age of 18, I would say, to about 21, in employment, that was one of the things I realised that I struggled with. Settling down and not moving myself from pillar to post, because it does have that effect on you, I found, being in care. But I think that I don't know about every authority, but I think that there are authorities out there that do try their best and who do care for the young people who they're charged with caring. But at the end of the day, it's not as simple as just being able to care. As I said, there's resource issues. There's other things in the mix, unfortunately, when you've been grown up in the care system. So I found that that to be quite true. And the young people that I've come across, as I said, who I've helped through Daughter Arise, they don't have any family there. They don't have any support there. And on top of that, they're dealing with the issues that brought them into care in the first place. It is really, really hard. And I wish everybody could have the kind of stability that Rebecca has found, but it's not always been the case for people. There are some excellent foster carers out there who do care about, they don't see them as a foster child or whatever. There are people that care about, the young people who they've looked after and stuff. But when you're going through issues as well, it's very hard because you don't even sometimes know what you want, or even when you have it, it can be hard to kind of receive, maybe because of trust issues or because you've been hurt in the past. And I do wish, the people, all the young people, Liam and Chloe and the people that she interviewed in her documentary, I do wish them all the best. Yes, the odds are stacked against you when you've come out the care system. I've mentioned this before, but I think that the odds can be beaten. But it's support really at the key. Is really the key to be able to help with that. And love covers so much things. When people feel that you love them and care for them, you'll be surprised how much that can actually bring out in somebody. But obviously once you leave the care system, that is also very hard to find. I had some excellent key workers in care. I had one particular social worker I remember to this day. She passed, but she was just so lovely, so warm, so lovely, and I didn't see her all the time, obviously, because she had other people to see, but her love, and I felt her care and her love, and that really had an impact to me. Same with some of the key workers I had in some of the residential homes, love is something that you will always remember. So, yes, it does really depend on you fighting when you come out of care. You fighting for what you want and stuff, and it's hard. It's really, really hard without support. But, if you have support, it can be done. So, check out this documentary, From Care to Chaos. Do I think it's possible to come out of care, past chaos, and develop into the person that you want to be? Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't think that care should define you as a person. I haven't allowed care to define me as a person. Care was just a part of my journey. And, yes, I did go through a chaotic few years. But that wasn't just about me coming out of care. That was to do with my issues that were left behind from being sexually abused and, some lifestyle decisions and everything that I was going through. But it is possible to move past the chaos. it is hard work. It does require, being open about your feelings, being able to try and find someone to trust, and obviously, again, it's about being in that safe environment to be able to do that. But yeah, I do believe it's possible to move past care, to out of chaos, and to get on an even track in life. And it can take a few years, to do that, but it is absolutely possible. So yeah, check out the documentary. It's called Care to Chaos. And I will be talking a bit more about my experiences in care, as a young person. Some of the kind of issues that I felt that really kind of hindered me. And I'll be sharing more about that with you. I've obviously shared with you about how my self-harming started in care and everything. And I do hope to share some more with you about my experience in care. But yeah, check out the documentary if you can, and I will see you in the next video.